this meeting of the Sheffield Selectboard to order. We'll thank CTSB for videoing and live streaming our meeting tonight. We'll start with the approval of meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes of the June 22nd executive session. Oh, sorry, and June 22nd. Sorry, I was reading the wrong sentence.
Second.
Yep. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, moving on to the public hearing. We're a couple minutes late, but if you'd like to start.
Absolutely. Start off, I'm Steve Hayward, National Grid. And I suppose I'd just like to ask which hearing that you know would like to hear first.
Oh, which one do we have on top?
Rhonda will tell us in a minute.
Do you want the number? Will that help you?
Which street would be better if you have that?
Okay.
Route 7, poll number 118, Route 7.
So if anybody in the audience is here for this one, it's just right over this way. Yes? So there's some visuals. Has the general layout on that last page there.
To help things out, if you want to take my copy, I've read it, and then Trudy can have yours.
I have a whole bunch.
You have a whole bunch, okay.
So I don't know if anybody else is interested.
That's 104 Main? No, that's further down.
Yeah, this is right across the street from.
Yeah, mine is
Wow.
up here.
Okay.
This is mine.
Yep, so we're gonna remove that pole, we intend to remove that pole and install a new one on the north side.
Okay, so this one's just staying.
That's gonna stay exact, that's gonna stay as is, yeah. So, we are.
Go ahead.
Steve, National Grid, we are requesting to relocate an existing pole, that is pole 118-84. We're looking to move that more north of its current location. Reason being is just it's by the request of an abutting property. Here to answer questions.
I have a question. Are you going to be replacing the main pole that's on the west side here? Is that how I'm reading this?
Correct.
Because that one's leaning pretty hard towards the west town hall side.
Yep.
And that one that you're talking about removing is the main support cable for that pole, correct?
Correct.
So what are your intentions to support? Are you replacing that pole, then you're going to, I would assume, have some supports?
Correct. So the pole that we intend to remove, that 118-84 and relocate, that one, it holds up our 118.
Okay.
So we're going to remove this section, and instead we're going to create a bisecting.
Okay.
As opposed to just that straight inline type of support.
So you'll have two guide cables on it for strength instead of the one? Okay, that's the only question I had.
I have no
And
questions.
you have questions?
I have no questions.
You have no questions? Okay, do we have to close,
Ask
my inexperience, do we have to close each hearing individually?
Do you want to
Or-
ask for public comments?
Yes, but
And then then
we're
one of
doing
us will
these
make a
one at a
motion.
time?
Yes.
Okay. So then, do we have any public comments on this proposal?
Then I would make a motion that we close this public hearing.
And I'll second that motion.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Cooper Hill.
All right, so Cooper Hill, this is another, is anybody here for Cooper Hill? So for Cooper Hill, we have another customer request. They have requested that they do not want pole 47-1, if you look at the diagram, they don't want that near the property anymore. So in order for us to accommodate that, if we relocate pole 47 and pole 47-2, very, very similar locations. I have a picture that I have. So you can see, this is the existing pole locations. We're just shifting them just over 5 feet, just to these kind of spots here. Not a huge shift, but it's
Right.
necessary for us to come and request permission for.
Okay.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, that pole on the west side that you're removing supplies power to that house, I would assume, that's on that side?
It used to, but
It used to. Okay, so it's actually become non-use.
Well, this pole 47-1, it's kind of what keeps the pole line on Cooper Hill Road staying up similar to this
Okay.
here. But if we shift things just a little bit, then we can get different support structures on those.
Okay.
Do you have any questions?
Any public comment? Any questions from the board?
I would make a motion to close this second public hearing regarding Cooper Hill Road.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
And last but not least,
Oak Street.
Oak Street, yes. So we're looking to extend our pole line on Oak Street, and that's, we're having a new home built on 65 Oak Street. So we just need to extend our pole line to be able to reach that residence.
okay. Any questions?
No questions for me.
Questions? Public comments?
I would make a motion to close this public hearing
Second.
on Oak Street.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you,
Thanks,
sir.
Steve.
Thank you all very much, we appreciate it.
So, Bob, Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion that we approve the National Grid coal location applications for Main Street, Sheffield, Cooper Hill Road, and also Oak Street as presented.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Are we going to go with the RPC and Wiley at this time?
No.
Out of order, or you want to continue in order? Okay. Appointment and introduction of Veterans Agent.
And here he comes. Good
Good
evening.
evening.
My name is Thomas Beasley. It's nice to meet you all tonight. I am the new Director of Veteran Services for Berkshire County South. Very excited about my position. I am taking Lori Hill's place, so big shoes to fit, eager, ready to go. So I've been there from 1 June I started. So getting to know my community. A little bit about myself first, is I live in Egremont. I actually rented in Ashley Falls during COVID while my wife and I's home was being built in Egremont. Wonderful community, loved it. We're right on Main Street. We really miss that, but we're very happy where we are. So I've been in Berkshire County for 7 years now. I raised my children in Las Vegas. I'm an Army vet. All over the country here and there, served during Desert Storm, did a little bit of tours during Operation Iraqi Freedom. From there, my children now are in their young 30s, so it was time for me to cut ties. So I made my way back here. So I'm very, very happy to be in the area. With the veterans, I'd like it to be known that COVID kind of shut the system down, where, let's take, for example, your senior center. I met Kathy. You guys have a wonderful senior center. Wonderful people there. We weren't able to get there for the veteran lunches, the first and third Wednesday of every month, so that's on my schedule. Becoming out to the community that there's a face now with the veteran services. It's, does the town do like a quarterly newsletter?
No, but we do have a
Website?
Well, we have a website, and there's also a public paper, Sheffield Times.
Cool.
That does a bi-monthly, I believe.
Cool. I'd like to just put little blurbs out there to the community, because the veterans' benefits are always changing. And if we don't let the veterans and their families know, that there's help for them, then they're not gonna come knocking. Vets and their families are a proud bunch. Getting them in the door is the hardest part. So my office is in Great Barrington on 491 South Main Street. Tentatively, my office hours are 8 to 1, Monday through Thursday, by appointment all day Friday. But I want it to be known that 24/7, I'm available for a vet and their families. So even if I'm not in my office, email, the phone number that's listed on all the websites, I check that all the time. So if you know a vet or a family that is in need of any service, if I don't have the ability to get that service for them, I'll find a way to do that. Again, thank you for your time tonight. National Grid's a tough guy to follow. I'm really, really excited to work with you guys. Do you have any questions for me real quick?
Welcome.
Thank you.
Do we have to do an appointment? All right, then I would make an appointment that we, make a motion that we appoint Thomas Beasley as the Sheffield, what does the motion sound like, Rhonda?
So you would want to appoint him as, even though it's just Sheffield, but as the Southern Berkshire Veterans Agent, I believe.
As the Southern Berkshire, District Director for the Southern Berkshire Veterans Services.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
And you are very
I'm going to
welcome.
leave some cards for you guys.
Yes,
Please.
because I'm going to send you some information on the Sheffield Times,
More
so you
better,
can
guys.
get a column in it, and I'm also going to send you information on the grit chair, which we have over at the library, which I understand is available to veterans through the services.
That's outstanding.
Okay.
Yes, send me everything that you can. And I always get back to you. So if you send me an email, just give me some
Great.
time to digest.
Yep.
I did speak with Nicole and dropped off my ethics and my open meeting bylaws, so we're good there. Hey, Jill. Doing well.
Get to know, if I may make a recommendation, get to know our librarian, Dana Caswell. She does a lot of programs, and you may want to consider doing a program that is just for veterans' families.
Thank you. I shall. Wednesday, when I leave my lunch, I will, and her name is Dana?
Dina.
Dina. I will go meet Dina. Absolutely.
Thank
Nice
you,
to see you
sir.
again, brother. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. You guys have a great night.
You thank
You
you.
too.
Thanks, guys. Anybody have any vets in their families? Veteran service agent, okay? I may not have all the answers, but I'll get them for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Wiley, it's your turn from PRPC.
Thank you. Sorry, you left so quickly because some of the work that I'm doing actually
Would you send this to
dovetails
Jill so she can?
right with that.
Just hand it out.
That we have some handouts for those who are interested, and if anyone has a phone with them and access to the internet, there's a link to the document that I'm talking about in in my presentation that I can direct you to. But I'll just start, and I think it'll be easy for everyone to follow along. So my name is Wiley Goodman. I'm the Senior Economic Development Planner for the Berkshire Regional Planning Commission, and I'm here to just share with you the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy Report that I and other staff at BRPC and community members as part of a SEDS committee worked on that essentially chart the economic direction of Berkshire County from 2023 to 2027. And I was brought in specifically to work on the topic of resiliency, which we know from things like the recent flooding that happened with road closures, as well as another project that I'm going to be working on coming up around digital equity, is something that we all have to be thinking of. How do communities stay resilient in the face of more extreme weather, cyber attacks, and just ensuring that our communities are poised to be able to have people live and work in them into the 21st century when we know more people are living and working remotely. So what does the SEDS, Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy Report, what does it track? We look at regional economic conditions and trends. We do a SWOT analysis, so that's the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats in Berkshire County. We come up with a strategic action plan based on that SWOT. We come up with performance measures, ways that we're going to evaluate the implementation of recommendations in the SEDS and their impact. And then again, we do this economic resiliency assessment, looking at planning, information networks, pre-disaster recovery, and so forth. So when we think about Sheffield as a community within Berkshire County, and we think about the assets, again, think about a SWOT analysis for your town. We look at some of the strengths that you have. Again, you're the oldest town in the Berkshires. You have a strong sense of history. You're one of the most scenic communities in the Commonwealth. The average earnings and the per capita income in this town is generally higher than the county average. You have some of the lowest unemployment rates and an overall high educational attainment. So that puts you in good stead. Really interestingly, I found as I was, and some of this data comes from Berkshire Benchmarks, which if you're not familiar with Berkshire Benchmarks, it's a great website that BRPC created as a kind of data repository for the entire county. So we have demographic, economic, social, other kinds of data that you can use for grants and other kinds of applications. Your population is sort of very interesting because it's pretty balanced in terms of the age. There's a lot of communities that really trend older. But Sheffield actually has about 1,747 members of its population that fall under Gen Z, Millennial, and Gen X, and then about 1,571 members of the community who are baby boomers. So that's really interesting because you're actually more balanced in terms of the age spread than some other communities. You have a wetland complex in Chenab Brook, one of the most unique and unspoiled ecosystems in the world, and you're a pollinator-friendly community, which again is really important for your agricultural sector, and again, just a strong sense of community with activities like Berkstock Festival and Dewey Hall. That being said, like all communities, you have challenges. Some of those include the rent and home expense burden. So 77% of residents who rent, of those who rent, 77% are paying 30% or more of their income for rent. That's about 202 units. And for homeowners, it's about 49% that are again paying 30% or more of their income for home-related monthly costs. So we would like that number to be a little bit lower. And again, it sort of speaks to, inflationary pressures, the cost of just cost of living and other kinds of things. Services, as we know, went up during the pandemic. Again, there's been a rise in your tax bill. Again, some of that's important to cover infrastructure and other improvements. Really important is that you have an outdated master plan. So your master plan is from 2005. We are now in 2023, so I would say it's high time that the town consider updating its master plan so that you're keeping pace with some of the, understanding where you want your community to be. And again, climate change threats that are impacting your roads, as we saw from the recent flooding, and the agricultural economy. So looking at your last master plan visit, and I won't read this entire document. So a master plan was created in 2005 with a 2014 look ahead, so about 7 years. So again, you talked about retaining the rural beauty and character of the community, promoting, again, your agricultural heritage, keeping it vital. You talked about the wise stewardship of your unique and special natural resources and encouraging the creation of compatible recreational and economic opportunities. Talked about your historic and cultural buildings and landscapes and preserving those, and sort of citing housing and business development in a way that made sense for your New England context. Making sure there is housing available in a wide range of types and prices. Ensuring, again, existing compatible businesses, ensuring there's a diverse array of businesses, economic opportunities, and entrepreneurial development, and ensuring that current technologies are available to business and residents, and that energy-efficient practices are promoted and embraced. And then last but not least, essential municipal facilities and services such as schools, and a broad transportation network are provided at the highest quality and affordable to all members. So those were just some of the visionary statements from your last master plan. For the SEDS, for our vision, when we think about things countywide for 2023 to 2027, we use terms like ensuring that Berkshire County is sought after as an affordable, inclusive, and safe place for people of all ages and backgrounds, offering a high quality of life and abundant employment opportunities. The community will nurture and support each other, prioritizing equitable access to education, healthcare, and housing, protecting the environment for future generations, again, building a resilient economy grounded in the region's history of innovation and entrepreneurialism. So the SEDS is, this year, every time we do these 5-year SEDS, they're created in these 5-year look-aheads. I'm just gonna hold this up for people. This is the framework that we used for this 5-year SEDS. And it's based on the research of a rural economist named Brian Dabson out of Nebraska. And, it's not rocket science, I'll say that, but basically his framework talks about having healthy people who then create a healthy community, and together they, again, build a healthy economy. Now, I think there's some room for debate about that framework in a way. We know from places like Pittsfield, when we had General Dynamics here, or General Electric, or we had Sprague and North Adams, and similar large employers, that when there's a large employer, that can create a healthy economy, which again creates a healthy community and people. However, what we also learned from that situation is that you cannot rely on a single major employer. Otherwise, you're troubled when that employer leaves, and we know that the manufacturing sector has changed dramatically. So you need a diverse economy. So the SEDS goals that we created focus again on that people, community, economy. So the first goal we have is healthy people. Second goal is resilient communities. Third is a future-ready workforce. Fourth is a strong business environment. And 5 is robust infrastructure. And again, all of those things are kind of interrelated. When we did our SWOT analysis on the entire county, some of the strengths include Berkshire County's strong brand identity. Again, you can go to probably many different parts of the country and you say the Berkshires, people have a positive association with it. And that's not something to sneeze at. That's really valuable, and you really want to continue to promote that. Again, your agricultural heritage, especially in South County with the dairy economy, really important to continue to maintain that. Again, cultural amenities, educational institutions, and what we learned a lot during the pandemic is outdoor rec, another part of the economy that we really want to promote a lot more. We know that people left big cities and went to rural Montana and rural Utah and places like that because they wanted to kayak and hike and do all that sort of things. And there's no reason why the Berkshires can't have that same value add for people looking for a place to live and work. Some of the weaknesses, though, again, broadband cellular, which I'm going to be working on in an upcoming project with all of you around digital equity, really important that we keep pace. Cable, which has 25 generally, for some people, their fastest speed is like a 25 upload, 3 download. It ain't gonna keep pace. We're looking at 100 upload downloads, high-speed fiber. We know that there's towns right around here, Washington, Otis, Windsor, I think, I'm sorry, I forget Beckett, that have created high-speed fiber, and that is incredibly valuable. So how do we figure out a way to bring that kind of faster speed to your community so it's something you can sell to people who are thinking about where to live and work? When your cell phone drops, when your internet is slow, you know how frustrating it is. And when you have bills that are high and your service does not reflect what you're paying for, that's frustrating. Again, insufficient housing, making sure that we have housing at different levels of affordability. You all are adjacent to Great Barrington, and you know that when restaurants and service providers do not have staff for their restaurants and retail, and those people have to live further and further away to find affordable housing, that affects the economic stability of those communities. They can't stay open as many hours. They are having to bus people in and bring them in from farther away, and that's not viable. So creating more range of housing is really important. Again, opportunities for looking at in-migration. It did happen during the pandemic. How do we build on that? increase diversity of our communities. We know that immigrants are some of the largest and fastest group of entrepreneurs, and that immigrants coming into communities, especially rural communities, are incredibly powerful at revitalizing them. I urge everyone, if you're not familiar with Lansing, Pennsylvania, a mostly Amish and Quaker community, read up about the impact of immigrants and refugees to that community. It's been transformative, a really fascinating case study. In terms of threats, access to childcare, declining population, educational setbacks during COVID, and again, high energy prices. I'm going to try to move through this a little quickly. I don't want to belabor some of this. Again, so we created objectives based on that SWOT analysis. For under people, again, expanding broadband access to underserved are some examples. Investing in vibrant, safe, and walkable downtown commercial districts. Again, not every community is ripe for that, but looking at infill and looking at places, we know the Windrush community that was just built in Great Barrington, great example of like taking a spot that's on a transit hub, making it so people can walk from there to amenities and stores and things like that, looking for those opportunities. Really important. Advocating for increased rail. And then under economy, we have redeveloping former mill sites like is happening in Lee, establishing a revolving loan fund for small businesses. Again, when we look at resiliency, we look at how towns were doing pre-COVID, during COVID, and post-COVID as a sort of sample of where there could be resiliency threats. And when we look at people, one of the really distressing parts of the healthcare situation across Berkshire County, again, it may not be specific to Sheffield, is looking at some of the high rates of heart disease, of cancer, opioid-related overdose, suicides, adult obesity. Some of these are preventable public health issues. You know, we live, again, in a place that we have so much access to nature, and yet, again, if people can't get to them or they don't see the outdoors as for them, or they feel, I don't know if people have, again, read in the news about social isolation and loneliness. People just feeling alone in their communities, especially as they get older, living alone in single-family housing. How do we create neighborliness and sense of community and bringing people together for activities that are also health promoting? Really simple potential ways to improve people's outcomes just by increasing opportunities for neighborliness, walking clubs, book readings, things like that. For community risks, again, master plans are important. Looking at green community status, ways to create opportunities for attracting municipal staff and volunteers. We know a lot of the folks who serve on boards and committees can get really overtaxed. They're doing this as volunteers. We need to create a pipeline of young people who understand the value of civic engagement, who feel connected to their community and want to serve on boards and committees and help out. And there's ways that we can do that, again, through our school systems and creating stronger links. For the economy, we need to create more support for women, veteran, and minority-owned businesses, looking at helping businesses that are at risk. I would urge people to look at the state's, the Commonwealth's Future of Work report, really illustrative and instructive in terms of the sectors of the economy that are at risk of mechanization, automation, robots, and things like that. So we know if you look at your community and you understand where people are employed, what sectors they're employed in, you can say, uh-oh, we're going to need to retrain and reskill people if they're not prepared for the next iteration of work. And looking at supply chain disruptions. In terms of recommendations for people, one of the really important ones is expanding food access for people who are food insecure. There's a lot of people who are SNAP eligible and don't take advantage of it. We should be reaching those people, encouraging more people to sign up who are eligible, and then we know that there's lots of people who fall in a gray area where they may not fall in the poverty level that is eligible for SNAP, but we know that they're food insecure. So how do we expand food access to those folks? Connecting youth with financial literacy, again, creating habits of saving and helping them prepare for the time when they're going to be independent. For community, increasing Chapter 90 and pilot funding, again, for infrastructure maintenance and upgrades. for the economy, again, offering training to at-risk employers, assisting with continuity and resilience, and again, supporting expansion of vocational education for youth, upskilling and reskilling. So in terms of what's next with the SEDS, we are required by the federal government, we turn our SEDS into the Economic Development Administration. They ask us for annual updates to show progress on our projects. We create priority projects, things that people, the SEDS committee and community members have identified as projects that they think have the most bang for the buck, that where we're likely to have the most economic value and give back to the community. Those are things that, if they're in the SEDS, it makes it easier for us to apply for other federal grants to support those projects. And then again, continued conversations with municipal stakeholders like you in presentations like this. If you want to learn more about the SEDS, go to our website, berkshireplanning.org, go under initiatives, then Berkshire Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy and SEDS. And we created some really fun social media this year with a high school student. It's on Berkshire Regional Planning Commission's YouTube channel, and we had her translate the SEDS into a series of like Q&As that she created in a sort of TikTok fashion. It was really fun. Again, we want to share that with more youth so that they understand what this document is. And I'll say that in the past, the SEDS was this like tome that was like hundreds of pages long. It is not anymore. The Economic Development Administration said, we don't want that kind of boring writing. So it's now, I think we got it down to 100 pages, but a lot of it's sort of bibliography and charts and graphs. So the actual sort of meat of the narrative, I think we got down to like, I want to say 60 pages or so. Big typeface, lots of pictures. So the idea is, again, through these presentations, through the website, through a story map that we created, also, again, a much shorter version, like a really quick summary and things like that, is to make the SEDS something that is more accessible to everybody. So that's all I have to report, and happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Wonderful, Wiley. I remember this when you first got it, and it was a tome.
Yeah.
And there is a lot of information to look at.
Yeah. And I'll do, again, a small plug for the next project that I'm doing that I know Renee and Rhonda have already been promoting, and thank you so much on your website, but if you haven't seen it, the state is doing a huge project around digital equity, making sure that the internet is accessible, reliable, and affordable for all residents, with a special focus on veterans. I'm really bummed that he left before I could talk to him, but I will reach out to our seniors, to people with disabilities, to people who are low income, non-English speakers, youth, etc. Take 5 minutes. Go on the Sheffield Town's website, complete this digital equity survey. It is highly valuable that Berkshire County be counted. It is like the US Census kind of thing. If your voices are not in there, if we don't know what your needs are, you will be forgotten when the state goes out for looking for funding. After you do it, tell 5 of your friends. And you will hear more from us as we really ramp up this project. There'll be posters and QR codes, and we'll be at farmers markets and zucchini festivals and other kinds of things. So, thank you so much.
Anything, Nadine?
No, thank you very much, Wiley. That was very informative.
Very informative, very thorough. Appreciate it.
Hand up in
Thank
the
you.
back.
Thank you so much.
Pat?
Well, the question is, clearly you want from the community an updated master plan, but what else do you want? This was a lot of information coming at us. What could we do to help you in what you're doing?
Well, I mean, for the SEDS. I mean, the SEDS is written, so at this point, you know, I think there's not like a lot to do at this point. Like I said, there will be annual updates and will be, you know.
There are goals.
Yes, there are goals in the SEDS. So, you know, I think this is for your community to like look at the SEDS, look at where your community, what are the goals and strategies that are meaningful to your community. Again, some of them will be walkable downtown. Like that may not be appropriate for Sheffield because you're a more spread out community. But healthy people and looking at the health conditions and health status of people in your community may be important. So it may be a conversation with Fairview Hospital, and again with veterans and other people looking at how as a community can we help our people be healthier? how can we, looking at your school system, which you're already doing, there's the whole Berkshire 12, right? Am I getting that name right? There's
Berk 12.
Berk 12, yes, thank you. So Berk 12 is doing, so there are people, I should say, who are already working, sort of, they informed what we wrote. So the recommendations from Berk 12, for example, to expand vocational education, that's an effort that's happening and should be continued to be supported. I would say that this tonight is really interesting, there's no projector here. I think having a projector for your town is an important part of making your government more accessible and bringing more youth potentially and other people into your process. How do you get funding or get a donation of a projector? I think that's something that is a small but actually really meaningful goal that the select board and the community could say, hey, that's something we could do to, you've got the television, so I should say that you're sharing what we're saying here, obviously, to the larger public. But it might be that you think about how do we increase recruitment for the select board, and you come up with creative ideas for, again, inviting you, having a youth night, having an ice cream social before your select board meeting, things like that. I'm totally happy to brainstorm with you because I love doing that. So if there's things that you see in the SEDS, again, as you look at updating your master plan, that's where BRPC will be helpful at identifying what are the most important things for your community to think about.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Trudy?
So will there be an outreach from you guys to people in the community that would be interested in working on this? In the interface with them? Who's going to help them execute the SEDS?
So right now, and I will double check on this on my end, when we're writing the SEDS, there are regular meetings of a SEDS committee, and those are open to the public, but that is now kind of passed. So I will try to find out when the next SEDS committee meeting will be, because it won't be for a while, because again, the federal government, thankfully, has made these annual progress updates much simpler. They're literally one-pagers, I think, that are how's it going on that project, and you tell them and you're good. So I'm not sure at this point, in this interim period, if there's much for the community to kind of do to really contribute to the SEDS, because it's written. It's sort of set in stone for the next 5 years, and it's our job to just stay on top of progress of projects. I do think that the topic of resiliency is important, and in my mind, one of the things I wanted to do is start to kind of keep a spreadsheet of climate change, again, which roads flooded, in this recent storm. I read the Eagle, but I don't read every article. You guys are down here, you've got the Sheffield Times, you're on top of it. So I would say that, Renee and I are in touch on a fairly regular basis about various things. And so I trust her that if you were to go to her or someone on the board and share, hey, this is a problem I've identified, or this is a strategy or solution that I'd like to see Sheffield try, that she can bring that back to me, and that can become something that I start to take note of, so that as we, again, think towards the next SEDS for 2027, we're kind of starting to build a little, a contextual database of ideas, of problems, and things like that.
I think the answer to both Trudy and Pat is the work is done. This is the report to Sheffield as to what they've come up with. So there isn't any work to be done from writing. It's whether, it's to be aware of what our strengths and weaknesses are at this point.
And it's up to us to implement.
I think the main thing is that everyone should go on the website and take the time to read the SEDS report. Okay, this was a really good presentation, but having been involved with this since it first started, I'm trying to remember, 10 years ago, something like that, it would be good for us to read the full report about 60 pages, big pictures, and see what would apply for us. Obviously, you've been talking to Pat Levine, who's the chair of the Board of Health. Health is mentioned in here, and it would be good to see how that's tracking with your goals that you shared with us recently, Pat, for the Board of Health. We're working on the MBI and the broadband, okay? The master plan, if the community had the energy to do that, I think we could probably consider making an application for a district local technical assistance grant. There's a BRPC senior planner, Seth Jenkins, who has done master plans with, I think, 7 or 8 communities now. It's one of the strengths. But a master plan is not something that the board itself could do. It really is a community effort. So I think read the plan and then bring things, to the board.
And I would say, think about prioritizing, one item under people, one item under community, one item under economy. Just take the year and make it, make reasonable goals. Don't try to take on the universe. I know under economy, you've talked about outdoor rec. That the town has thought about how do we better promote our outdoor recreation assets. That to me is a very doable, manageable goal, looking for grants and funding for wayfinding or for marketing or other kinds of things. If the town, you guys take a vote, it could be, again, an item on your select board. You say, okay, we read the SEDS, we've looked at it. What does Sheffield want to prioritize at a local level, a municipal level, in terms of our own, kind of mini SEDS goals? And set one for people, one for community, one for economy, and then carry it out. I think that is how I would approach it.
Get involved with the Housing Commission, see what they're doing. They have the charge right now, if I remember correctly, Nadine, on the affordable housing. Nadine led that effort and got the plan approved by the state. That was, about a year ago, Nadine?
Just about a year, yep.
So what's happening? The planning board is working on updating the zoning bylaws to support that work. So there are things going on, and check in and see what's going on. But I would read the report, see what jumps out at you.
And digital equity will be a big one.
Yeah,
So,
and we're working on that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you
Very much. Moving on to our next agenda item, action on safe harbor amendment to the conservation restriction. As I'm aware, we just need to take action. This has actually been done.
Yes.
It needed a little bit of tweaking.
This was a restriction that you approved a couple years ago, and when the people who have the restriction, the family who has the restriction, file taxes, there are certain requirements by the IRS that the previous plan didn't include, and so they've made some minor changes into IRS standards, and they're asking you to just re-sign it so that it can be submitted again.
So let me try a motion. Okay, I motion that we approve the safe harbor amendment for the McDonald conservation restriction, given the requirements of the IRS and the state.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Announcement of F24 appointments.
So you can table that one, we don't have
Don't have
any
any at this
announcements.
Okay. So moving on to FY24 appointments. And it looks like we have 4 different boards that we have to appoint. So starting with Board of Health, we have 2 who have applied, we have 1 vacancy. So we have to make a decision on who we appoint. Both were announced at our last meeting.
So my understanding, and Barb is here tonight, Barb has a public health nursing background. and that Todd has a food service restaurant background. My understanding, and Pat can correct me, but my understanding is we do not have anyone on the board who has food service restaurant background, but presently with Eileen, who is here, we do have someone who has public health nursing background. So with that, I would like to nominate, I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name, Todd Reynolds
Rinaldi.
for the one vacancy, 3-year term on the Board of Health.
And I think I would second that. It's rare that we have two very qualified candidates. But like Renee said, I think this would round out our Board of Health a little more. Even though Barb is very qualified for the...
Don't be discouraged.
Please don't be discouraged.
Don't be discouraged.
So we have a second. Any further discussion on this appointment?
No, I would encourage people to make applications as vacancies come up. I have been concerned, and I did have a chance this weekend to meet the new Alliance Food Inspector, Jason. I think from Pittsfield. This food inspector was at the church event, Brookstock. His name was Jason. He was doing an excellent job on food inspections.
Substituting for Jane.
Okay, all right, but I do think we need that food service background. I see it as a weakness on the board right now, to not have that.
So, seeing how we have an appointment and a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm going to abstain since Todd is my partner.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
All right. Moving on to the Conservation Commission alternate. 2 vacancies, 1 year. One person has applied and has been announced, and that would be Don Ward.
I would make a motion that we appoint John Ward as an alternate for 1 year to the Conservation Commission.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Cultural Council. We have Dorothy Maffei.
I'll make a motion that we appoint Dorothy Maffei to the Cultural Council.
I would second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And then Electrical Inspector, 1 vacancy, 1 year, Mike Lennon.
I make a motion, we appoint Mike Lining, the Electrical Inspector.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And that's all the appointments we have for, appointments to the Housing Commission. This was a little bit of a hiccup at our last meeting where we appointed one too many people. So now we have to go back and rescind our vote from our last meeting.
I would make a motion that rescind the appointments we made to the Board of Health at our last meeting.
It's the Housing Commission.
Excuse me, Housing Commission. Yeah, we just did Board of Health, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I would make a motion that we rescind our votes from our last meeting that we made to the Housing Commission.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so moving forward, we have 3 people who would like to be appointed. We only have 2 vacancies, but we do have an alternate for 1-year term. So what we need to do is appoint 2, one for a 3-year term, 1 member for a 1-year term, and then the 3rd for a 1-year alternate.
All right, so I'd make a motion to appoint Sari Hoy for a 3-year term, Dorothy Maffei for a 1-year term, and Susan Butler for a 1-year term as the alternate.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Discussion action regarding body-worn cameras grant. So we have from Renee a draft
Give you a little
letter.
background on it.
Please do.
Okay, so there's, people might remember that we did a very successful grant last year from the Executive Office of Public Safety and Security, where we were able to equip our police officers with body-worn cameras and get all of that and the software to support that under a grant from this office. It's now been installed and going very well, and they would like to take advantage of this fiscal year 24 grant, which again is only for body-worn cameras. They would like to get, I'm not sure of the exact number, that's why there's blanks on this letter of support. I think it's 4 to 5 additional body-worn cameras so that every officer, some of whom are part-time, has their own body-worn camera, and also additional battery packs. I'm not sure of the exact number. It would be filled in. They need additional battery packs for the charging. And JC is working with the chief on getting these exact numbers, and I'm working with them on the grant, and we should have a letter of support to support this grant. It's at no cost to us.
I'll make a motion that we present and sign this letter once it's fully complete for all 3 board signatures to support this grant request.
I second that.
Any further discussion? No, I think it's a great idea. So, all those in favor? Aye. Okay, discussion possible action regarding fee for white goods at transfer station. Seeing how we have our, would you like to do it or would Rhonda like to do it?
So currently at the transfer station, we don't charge for white goods, which would be appliances, washers, dryers, stoves, refrigerators, dishwashers. But when they go into the metal container, they're large and they take up a lot of room, so it's cost us to have increased haulings, which we have to pay for hauling the metal away. So we discussed if you buy a new appliance, I think currently most places are charging you $50 to take your old appliance away. This proposal would charge 1 coupon for each piece that was put into the metal container, and our coupons are $30 a piece. So if you want to add to that, that's what
I think this is really good. Part of the problem is that everything is going up so incredible in terms of hauling. And I think with the coupon, when you put a white good, like a stove or refrigerator, as Rhonda mentioned, the person who is occupying that space in the container, even though it goes over to Milky Salvage Yard, it has to be transported, and you'd be surprised what they charge for that short distance. The person who's occupying that space would in fact be paying for that real estate. And it seems fair to me as our recycling coordinator that that's the way it should be. All the rest of us, if we flatten our metals and we put things in, that's kind of gratis for us. It's part of our transfer station coupon. But we've got to find ways to kind of build up a little bit more of money coming in, because it just continues to cost us more and more. And we are going to be looking, I think, at a deficit this year on this white goods container if we don't try and do something like this. So I strongly support it, particularly since it's about 2/3 of the price if you, buy an appliance and have the store haul it away. I know somebody who just told me they were charged $52 when they bought a new refrigerator to haul that refrigerator away, and yet you can put yours in a truck and bring it over, save $22, and give us $30 to offset the cost of that shipment, that hauling cost. So I think that, to me, seems very fair.
So I'll make a motion that we start charging 1 coupon for any white goods delivered to the transfer station, with a coupon costing $30.
Would you like to make that as effective as maybe August 1st, so I could get the signage and we could make sure that our...
Sure, as of August 1st.
I'd second that, excuse me.
No problem. And, okay, Frank?
Could I
You'd like-
clarify something here? Frank Clark, Silver Street, Sheffield. I'd just like to clarify something there. You were talking about refrigerators going into the white goods. As far as I know, we don't take any refrigerators. We take air conditioners, stoves,
Washers.
washing machines, dryers, but no refrigerators.
You took
I'd
mine.
just like to clarify that.
You took mine.
Pardon?
You took mine. I took my refrigerator over there.
I'm sorry.
Excuse me, it was a washer and dryer. We don't take refrigerators?
Refrigerator has Freon, so if there's a certification,
It has to be free on free.
Yes, but we've never taken a refrigerator.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that, Frank.
At least not while I was there.
Okay. So, okay, so, but it would apply to like washers, dryers, dishwashers, or a refrigerator if it was already been evacuated.
I mean, a refrigerator has Freon in it, and if you have to have, if you're gonna dump it, you have to have a certified.
Absolutely, and that says it on there. That
There's
says
nobody
it.
around here that does it.
Okay.
Well, it says it on there. If somebody brings a certificate in, we would take it.
Yes.
So we'll make sure we note on that it's with the Freon removed. Thank you, Frank.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, seeing how we have a motion and a second, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, we're getting down the list. All right. Discussion action regarding proposed dark sky bylaw. So, would anybody like to start the conversation on this? I guess,
Whoops.
that's all right. I guess I will start the
You weren't ready.
conversation. So, the planning board has drafted a dark skies bylaw. We have it here in front of us. I don't know if anyone in the public has read it. We need to make a decision or a suggestion on whether this becomes a zoning bylaw or if it stays in a general bylaw. Would any ladies like to comment on it?
Well, I think town council has recommended that it be a general bylaw, is that correct? So I think that that's probably where it should be, and that means it's the Board of Selectmen's job to draft the dark skies bylaw. So I think that we should make this our job to take what has been presented by the planning board and edit it and have a working meeting to discuss it and move it forward as a general bylaw for the public's presentation. In order for it to be enforceable, somebody has to have the ability to enforce it, and the planning board does not have any enforceability.
No, I would assume if it goes and stays as a zoning bylaw, it would go under the building and zoning officials.
Correct.
I support what Nadine said. So I'd make that motion that the select board develop a dark sky general bylaw using the planning board's work as the starting point.
I'll second it.
Okay, I will add some discussion. I seem to be the odd man out tonight because I would, given the amount of work that has been put into it and presented to us, I would have preferred to leave it with the planning board. But seeing how my two colleagues feel that this should stay with the select board, I'm willing to put it to a vote. All those in favor?
But could we have just a little bit more discussion?
Sure.
Okay. I think, first of all, I take town council's recommendation seriously.
And that's why I moved in that direction, Bob.
Second of all, to potentially pass as a zoning bylaw, it's a 2/3 vote.
Correct.
With the general bylaw, it is a majority plus one. I think the dark skies issue here, for many of us, myself included, being able to see the sky and the stars is extremely important to me. I think it's what brings a lot of people to the Berkshires and to Sheffield. So I do want to look at making this an enforceable and a doable and a livable and something that people will themselves take on. I think that's harder with a zoning bylaw. I don't know who's going to enforce it, okay, that is to be determined. But I think our building inspector has enough things going on that it might be a challenge.
Yeah, and it
there's nothing
seems to me
worse-
that,
excuse me,
I'm
Nadine.
sorry, it seems to me that this is something that, if written simply enough, people can police themselves on it and make sure that they're not
And
shining
if it-
lights into their neighbors'
And if
bedrooms.
it's not, then we have to figure that mechanism out.
Yeah. That's part of our job.
That's part of our job and part of what we would do. But I think the planning board has done an excellent first step.
Yep.
And maybe more than a first step, and we build on that. And my goal, I think maybe this board would agree to it, would be when we do take the general and zoning bylaws to a special town meeting later this year, this goes with it. We do our best to get it done.
I hope so. The only reason why I felt it might be better suited to stay with the planning board was that town council also said that most towns and municipalities' dark skies bylaw is in the zoning section, not
Yes,
the
but
general
he
section.
recommended that it be, just because towns maybe, we all copy each other. This came from New Marlboro, New Marlboro got it. There's a huge, in zoning, there's a huge copy everyone. But our town council has recommended, and they know our general and our zoning bylaws the best.
So, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Aye. Okay, so, moving on to discussion regarding Berkshire County mosquito control. Ross?
I asked Rhonda to ask you to put this on the agenda because, oh my gosh, there was a big article in yesterday's Eagle about mosquitoes. And we are one of the member towns, and we do pay for Berkshire mosquito control. And you can call them and or go on their website, which is berkshiremosquito.org, and you can ask them to spray your yard, to spray your area. You need to talk with them about what they will spray. I'm not up to date on that totally. It used to be that they would come on your driveway and spray, but I'm not sure that is still accurate. And also you can call them or go on their website and say, when you are spraying in town, do not spray my property, and give them the address. I know that there's a number of people who are concerned that these chemicals are not discriminating, and they've put a lot of work into pollinator gardens and such, and you can specifically tell them and order them not to spray your property. What's going to happen if we ever get out of this flood zone is they're predicting that there's going to be a pretty good mosquito group. And I just wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of this. Their phone number is 413-447-9808. But I think the best way to get in touch with them is to go onto the website. It's very easy, very clear to follow, berkshiremosquito.org, all one word. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Renee. That was very informative. And all residents should be aware that they can have additional spraying or no spraying in front of their residency. So that's great. Moving on to board items. Nadine?
I don't have anything, Bob, thanks.
Renee?
I'm good, thank you.
Moving on to administrative items, because I don't have anything either.
I just have one. I'd like to congratulate Sage Angel. He works for our highway department. He recently obtained his permit for his CDL license. So hopefully we'll have a newly licensed truck driver along with Griffin Samal, who is due to get his license in August, and have a fully licensed, with CDL license highway crew.
Great.
Excellent.
Congratulations.
We like to hear things like that.
Shall we send him a note? What do you think?
Well, we can, yes.
Will we make a motion?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. Okay, is that your last? Okay, so public comment. Do we have any public comment tonight? Seeing how it looks like none, I'll take a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Rhonda needs signatures before we